The ballroom reeks of roses. Why? The charity ball had begun. Miss Marple stood near the entrance. She noticed the scent first. Strong, too strong. Staff moved fast. Faces tight. Movements quick. She checked the clock. 8:50. 10 minutes before the raffle. Lady Bantry walked over. "Everything's ready," she said. Miss Marple asked, "The tiara?" "In the case," Lady Bantry said. "Front display. Guests will admire it." They walked toward the display. People stood around it. Some stared. Some drank. The tiara shone under the lights. Gold setting. Clear diamonds. "Raffle tickets sold out," Lady Bantry said. "A good cause," Miss Marple replied. Across the room, Sir Julian stood by the musicians. He adjusted his waistcoat. Lady Bantry called, "Sir Julian, are you ready?" "Tonight goes smooth," he said. "No trouble." Miss Marple watched him. He looked confident. Edwards, the butler, passed by, a silver tray in his hands. Lady Bantry asked, "For Sir Julian?" "Yes," Edwards said. "Private toast, 8:55, 2 flutes." "Yes." Miss Marple looked toward the pantry. Edwards went inside. He set the tray down, poured champagne into both glasses. The fizz was soft, the liquid settled. A figure passed behind him. A hand brushed close to the tray. Edwards turned. The person was gone. He frowned, picked up the tray, left the pantry. Miss Marple returned her eyes to the tiara. The crowd shifted. She stepped closer, looked at the lock. A mark. Thin, fresh, not dust, not wear, a scratch. She didn't touch it, just saw it. Lady Bantry asked, "Shall we go to the front?" "In a moment," Miss Marple said. Her eyes stayed on the lock. The scratch caught the light. The clock now read 8:53. Guests laughed. Music played. Miss Marple's face stayed calm. Her thoughts did not. A locked case. A fresh scratch. A rose scent too strong. Only minutes before the toast. Silver tray. 2 flutes. Different fingerprints. The pantry was busy. Staff moved in and out. Plates clattered. Voices stayed low. Edwards stepped inside. Set the silver tray on the counter. He checked the clock. 8:53. 2 minutes until the toast. He reached for the bottle, removed the foil. The cork gave a soft pop. Champagne fizzed into the first flute. Then the second. He set them side by side. Even pours. A figure passed behind him. The movement was quick. Out of the corner of his eye, a hand came close to the tray. Edwards turned. No one stood there. The pantry door swung shut. He frowned, looked at the flutes. Nothing obvious. He leaned closer. The rim of one glass had a faint smudge. Not clear like a fingerprint, more like a blur. He shook his head. No time to inspect further. The kitchen steward brushed past him. "Need that tray?" "Yes," Edwards said. "Now." He adjusted the napkin under the glasses, lifted the tray. As he turned toward the door, something hit his senses, a smell, not champagne, not polish, metallic, faint, sharp. He slowed his step, sniffed once more. It was gone. He reached the music room. Sir Julian stood waiting, alone. "Right on time," Sir Julian said. Edwards set the tray on a side table. Sir Julian picked up one glass. "Thank you, Edwards." Edwards stepped back, watched as Sir Julian raised it. He glanced at the other glass, still on the tray. Identical pour, identical bubbles. He saw nothing wrong. Sir Julian sipped, placed the glass down. "Leave it," he said. "I'll finish later." Edwards nodded, picked up the tray. He left the music room, walked back toward the pantry. The hallway was clear. He shifted the tray in his hands. The glasses rattled softly. Back inside the pantry, he set the tray on the counter. He reached for the untouched glass, lifted it by the stem. His thumb brushed the rim. It felt different, smooth, but not like clean glass. Almost dull. One glass felt wrong. The rim was not like the other. Something had touched it. He smiles, then stiffens. Sir Julian adjusted his tie, smoothed his waistcoat. The music room was quiet. Edwards entered with the tray. 2 flutes, champagne cold. Sir Julian smiled. Perfect timing. He took the glass nearest to him. Edwards stepped back, waited. Sir Julian raised the flute. To a successful evening. He sipped, small, measured. The champagne was fine, crisp. He placed the glass on the side table. Thank you, Edwards. The butler nodded, picked up the tray, left. Sir Julian straightened his jacket. He walked toward the ballroom. The music grew louder as he entered. Couples danced. Laughter carried over the floor. Lady Bantry waved him forward. Julian, come join us. He nodded, stepped into place. The waltz was smooth. 2 steps. Turn. Halfway through, his vision blurred. A tightness pulled at his chest. He paused. His partner looked up. Are you all right? He tried to answer. The words caught. His knees buckled. Gasps from nearby. The music faltered. He clutched his chest. Breath short. Then his legs gave way. He dropped to the floor. The musicians stopped. Silence spread across the room. Guests froze in place. Lady Bantry pushed forward. Get a doctor. 2 men knelt beside him. One checked his pulse. Still breathing, the man said. Sir Julian opened his eyes, saw the ceiling lights. His chest burned. Vision narrowed. Someone loosened his tie. Another tried to lift him. Careful, a voice warned. Hands under his arms, weight shifting. He tried to speak again. Only a rasp came out. Then a sharp smell reached him. Not roses, not champagne. Smoke, number different. He couldn't place it. Pain pulsed under his ribs. He coughed once. Weakness spread through him. He lay back, eyes closed. A small dark mark was on his waistcoat. It looked like a powder burn, slack. Natural cause. Marple. Maybe not. Inspector Slack stood over Sir Julian. The doctor knelt beside the body, checked the pulse, shook his head. Slack turned to the crowd. Stand back. Give space. Lady Bantry pressed her hands together. What happened? Slack's voice was firm. Looks like a heart attack. Miss Marple stood 2 steps away. Perhaps. Slack looked at her. You doubt it? She kept her tone light. Sometimes appearances mislead. Slack frowned. And sometimes they don't. He motioned to Sergeant Lake. Clear the area. Get names. Keep people in the ballroom. Lake nodded, moved off. Slack bent to check Sir Julian's jacket. He didn't notice the small mark. Miss Marple noticed. She said nothing. A young maid approached. Sir, I found this. She held out a small leather spectacle case. Slack took it. Opened the flap. Inside, a single lens cloth. On it, a gray speck. He tapped it with his finger. Dust. Miss Marple leaned closer. Not quite dust, metallic. Slack shut the case. Evidence. Bag it. He handed it to Lake. Lake returned with a paper envelope. Slack looked around the music room. No sign of struggle, no sign of forced entry. I'm sealing this until further notice. Miss Marple moved slowly. Her eyes scanned the corners. Slack noticed. Something, Miss Marple? Just looking, she said. He didn't like her tone. The police will handle it. She gave a polite smile. Of course. Slack stepped out to speak to Lady Bantry again. Miss Marple stayed behind. She walked to the far wall, eyes moving along the paneling. One section looked slightly different. She leaned closer. A faint smell reached her. Not Polish, not dust, fresh. It was the scent of wood stain, and it was coming from the music room panel. Empty display case. No alarm. Lady Bantry stepped into the display room. The case was open. The tiara gone. She froze. The lock was still in place. No scratches this time. She turned to the nearest footman. "Who opened this?" "No one, madam," he said. "Where are the keys?" "Only you, Mr. Ridge, and Sir Julian had them." Lady Bantry's voice stayed steady. "Sir Julian is dead. Mr. Ridge is—" "Where?" "Speaking to Inspector Slack, madam." Guests were moving toward the room. Lady Bantry stepped forward. "No one inside," she ordered. The footman blocked the doorway. She looked back at the empty case. The velvet lining was smooth. No sign of a snatched pull. The glass was intact. Hinges clean. This was not forced. This was planned. She turned to the second footman. "Close the ballroom doors. Keep people inside." "Yes, madam." Miss Marple entered quietly. "Gone, then?" "Yes," Lady Bantry said, "and the lock's untouched." Marple looked at the hinges, said nothing. Lady Bantry scanned the floor. No jewels, no fragments. Her eyes moved to the fireplace. Something caught the light. She stepped closer. A small diamond lay near the yew. Great. She picked it up, held it in her palm. The stone was clear, but the edges were strange. Frosted, not the smooth cut of the rest. She rubbed it with her thumb. The surface felt uneven. "Dropped?" Miss Marple asked. Lady Bantry shook her head. "Number damaged." She looked inside the grate. No other stones. The heat was faint, but recent. The fire had burned low earlier, yet this diamond felt different. She turned it in her fingers. Light caught on the edge. The frost wasn't dust. It was damage, and the surface was warm. The diamond held a faint heat. Something had burned it. Rose-scented mask. Slightly burnt smell. Cecily sat at the dressing table. The mask lay beside her. Pink silk. Rose scent, strong. She picked it up. Put it against her face. It felt soft. But something was off. The fabric made her skin itch. She pulled it away, looked closer. A few fibers were frayed. She set it down, reached for her lipstick. The scent still clung to her nose. Not just roses, something sharper. She frowned, smelled the mask again. Yes, a faint burnt note under the perfume. The door opened. A man's voice. "Thought this would add a touch to your performance." It was Mr. Ridge, estate manager. She remembered. He had given it to her earlier, said it would look striking on stage. She had thanked him without thinking. Now, she wasn't sure. She began her makeup. Foundation first, powder next. As she dabbed her cheeks, she noticed the powder puff had small gray specks. She tapped it on the table. More specks fell off. They weren't makeup. They were fine, metallic looking. She touched one with her fingertip. It felt gritty. She picked up the mask again, looked along the edges. Some of the stitching was darker. She rubbed the seam between her fingers. More specks came loose. Gray dust. There was no reason for a mask to have that. The knock at the door was gentle. Miss Marple stepped inside. "I came to wish you well," Marple said. Cecily smiled politely. "Thank you." Her eyes drifted to the mask. "May I?" Marple asked. Cecily handed it over. "Mr. Ridge gave it to me, said it was for effect." Marple nodded, brought the fabric close to her nose. Her expression didn't change. Cecily watched her fingers trace the edge of the mask. The older woman didn't speak for a few seconds. Then she folded the mask carefully. Marple slipped the mask into her bag. She planned to have it tested. Heels on the terrace. No return prints. Sergeant Lake stepped through the French doors. The air was cool. The terrace, damp with dew. He looked down. Footprints, rose-cap heels, clear impressions in the moisture. They moved away from the doors. He followed the line, one after another. The spacing was even. Whoever made them was not running. Lake reached the end of the row. No return prints. He turned, looked back at the doors. Only the single path out. Nothing coming in. He crouched, checked the depth of the prints, light. The wearer was not heavy. The heel caps were distinct, rose-shaped indentations. He made a note in his book. From the end of the prints, a stone border began. Beyond that, no more impressions. He looked left, then right. On the right side, the terrace railing had a faint smear. He moved closer. The smear was dark. He touched it with a finger, slightly gritty. He rubbed his fingers together. Not soil, not rust, fine particles, gray. He took out a handkerchief, collected some of the residue. Then he looked over the railing. The drop wasn't far. Below, a strip of gravel. Then, a paved path. The path led toward the side of the house. Lake followed it. Halfway along, he stopped. Another faint smear marked the railing here, too. Same texture, same color. He wrote it down. 2 smear points, both leading away from the terrace area. The second smear faced toward a narrow service path. That path went past the kitchen and pantry windows. He followed it. The ground here was uneven. Near the pantry wall, a thin line running down the stone. The line ended at a drain cover. He crouched again, touched the edge. Same gritty residue. The smear trail led straight to the pantry drain. Whatever it was, had been carried there. "Loans are clean," he says. Eyes tell otherwise. Mr. S. sat in the side room. Inspector Slack stood over him, notebook in hand. "You knew Sir Julian well?" Slack asked. "Yes," the banker said. "For years." Slack's tone was flat. "Financially close?" "We had business, loans, standard arrangements." "Repayments up to date?" "Yes, always." Slack didn't blink. "No delays?" The banker shifted. "We allowed some payment holidays. Common practice." "How many?" "2, maybe 3. Slack wrote it down. "Any conditions on those?" The banker shook his head. "Number just goodwill." Slack leaned closer. "And in return?" "Nothing." "You're sure?" "Yes," the banker said quickly. Slack's eyes narrowed. "You deal in more than loans, don't you?" "Only legal investments." "Diamonds?" Slack asked. The banker's gaze flicked to the door. Slack caught it. "Why look away?" "I don't deal in stones," the banker said. "Yet you hesitated," Slack replied. The banker adjusted his cufflinks. "It's a sensitive topic." "Why?" "Market instability, rumors, best not discussed here." Slack closed his notebook. "We'll discuss it later." The banker nodded once. "Fine." Sergeant Lake entered quietly. Slack asked, "Where were you at 8:55? "In the ballroom, speaking to Mrs. Wynne." "Anyone confirm that?" "Yes, several guests." Slack stepped back. "Stay available." The banker stood. "Of course." He walked toward the door. Lake moved aside, but didn't leave. The banker turned to someone in the hallway. His voice dropped. "Those figures in the loft ledger? They can't be right." The other man muttered something too low to hear. The banker replied, "If they see that, they'll ask questions." Lake stayed where he was, listened, without looking like he was listening. The words ledger and numbers stuck in his mind. Lake had just heard about a loft ledger, and the banker said the numbers were wrong. Glass rim, dull, metallic taste. Miss Marple entered the pantry. The tray was on the counter. 2 flutes. One was half full, the other untouched. She put on gloves, picked up the untouched glass, held it to the light. The rim wasn't clear, slightly dull. She reached into her bag, took out a clean cloth, wiped the rim lightly. Gray specks came away. She held them on the cloth, small, metallic. She touched one with a fingertip. Through the glove. Gritty. She set the cloth aside, picked up the other glass. Its rim was clean, smooth. She compared them again. Identical shape, same champagne, but one had residue. She turned to Edwards, who stood at the door. "Timing," she said. 8:55, Edwards replied. "Music room, Sir Julian, alone." "You poured both?" "Yes. Equal measure. Anyone touch them after that?" Edwards hesitated. "Someone passed close in the pantry. Didn't see their face." "Which glass?" "The one Sir Julian didn't take." She nodded. "And you noticed nothing else?" "A smell, metallic. Brief." She glanced back at the cloth, with the specks. "2 flutes," she said softly. "1 sip, 1 signal." Edwards frowned. "Signal?" She didn't answer. Instead, she walked toward the music room. The door was open. The room looked untouched. She stepped inside, moved slowly along the wall. Her eyes scanned the paneling. One section didn't sit flush. She stopped, placed her hand near the edge. A faint draft came through the gap in the music room panel. Something was hidden behind it. Panel opens, small derringer. Sergeant Lake examined the wall panel, fresh tool marks along the edge. He pressed his fingers against the wood. It shifted slightly. He pulled a small lever near the base. The panel swung open. Inside, a narrow cavity. A small derringer lay on a wooden shelf. Lake lifted it carefully. The barrel was short, modified. The muzzle showed scorch marks. He sniffed near the barrel, the smell of burnt powder. Still there. He turned it in his hand. The chamber was empty. 1 discharge. Fired recently. He studied the barrel opening. It had been altered to hold more than a bullet. Scratches inside suggested something harder had been loaded. He looked into the cavity again. At the far end, a narrow slit. He stepped to the side, peered through. The slit lined up perfectly with the spot where Sir Julian had stood during the toast. Lake measured the distance with his eyes. "Direct aim, no obstruction," he called out. "Inspector Slack." Slack entered. "What is it?" "Hidden firing position," Lake said. Slack leaned in. "Purpose-built." Lake nodded. "Barrel's been widened. Could fire powder and fragments." Slack's expression tightened. "Fragments? Metal, stone, anything sharp." Lake checked the shelf again. A few loose particles scattered there. He placed the derringer into an evidence bag, then pulled a small envelope from his pocket, scraped the shelf gently. Tiny crystals slid inside. Some glinted under the light. Others were dull gray. The cavity held diamond dust and lead flecks. Both had been fired from the hidden gun. He talks repair. Stain stays. Quentin Ridge stood near the side table. Inspector Slack approached. "You were near the music room earlier?" "Yes," Ridge said calmly. "Checking the paneling. Routine maintenance." Slack glanced at Ridge's hands. "What's that on your fingers?" Ridge looked down. Wood stain. From the repairs, Slack stepped closer. "Fresh?" "Yes. I touched up a section this afternoon." Miss Marple entered the room. Her eyes went to Ridge's hands. She moved nearer. "Rose scent?" she said quietly. Ridge raised an eyebrow. "Probably from the ballroom decorations." Marple shook her head. "It's not from flowers. It's mixed with the stain." Ridge smiled faintly. "You have quite the nose, Miss Marple." She looked at the nearby table. A ledger lay open. "Your work records?" she asked. "Yes. I keep accounts for the estate." She flipped a page. "These entries, your initials." Ridge nodded. "I approve expenses. Standard procedure." Marple pointed to one column. "Large payments. Odd timing." "Supplies for the ball," Ridge replied. She closed the ledger. "You seem prepared with answers." "That's my job," Ridge said. "I solve problems." Slack crossed his arms. "You were in the music room at 8:50? "Yes." I checked the paneling, then left. "Anyone see you?" Mr. Edwards, briefly. Marple's gaze stayed on his hands. The brown stain was dark along the nails. "And you didn't wash that off?" she asked. "No point," Ridge said. "I'll be working again tomorrow." Slack made a note. "You're sure it was only paneling work?" "Yes." Marple's tone sharpened. "The same paneling that hides a small firearm." Ridge's smile thinned. "I wouldn't know about that." Marple didn't look away. Slack tapped the ledger. "We'll be keeping this." Ridge shrugged. "As you wish." Marple glanced once more at his hands, then at his face. She asked softly, "Whose idea was 8:55? Minutes matter, seconds matter." Inspector Slack stood in the small study, notebook open, pen ready. "Let's go over this again," he said. Edwards sat across from him. "You poured the champagne at 8:53? Slack asked. "Yes," Edwards replied. "2 glasses. Music room?" "For Sir Julian. And at 8:55. I delivered them. He took one. The other stayed." Slack made a note. "Did you see Ridge then?" "Yes, passing through the hall toward the music room." Slack called in the next witness. "The lead violinist. You saw Sir Julian at 8:54? "Yes, standing near the music room doors," the musician said. "And Ridge?" The violinist thought. "I saw him leave the music room. Quick step." Slack underlined the time. Next came Cecily Black. "You were backstage at 8:50? "Yes, preparing." "Who brought you the mask?" "Mr. Ridge," she said. Slack wrote it down. "And you wore it during your performance?" "Yes, briefly." The banker entered. "At 8:55, Slack asked. "I was in the ballroom, speaking to Mrs. Winslack, checked with Lake." "Confirmed." Lake nodded. "Several saw them." Slack looked at his notes. Times lined up. Mostly. But Ridge's movements crossed too many places. Slack turned to Lake. "Who else saw him near the panel?" Lake checked his list. "1 staff member." "Bring them in," Slack said. A young waiter entered, shifting nervously. Slack kept his tone even. "You saw Ridge?" "Yes, sir. Near the music room, just before the toast." "What was he doing?" The waiter hesitated. "Adjusting something by the wall." "Which wall?" "The one with the paneling." Slack's eyes narrowed. "Anything else?" The waiter took a breath. "He also gave the singer that mask," the waiter said, right before she went on. Evidence could fit the banker. One thing doesn't. Miss Marple sat at the corner table. Her notes were in front of her. Inspector Slack leaned over. "The banker has motive." "Perhaps," Marple said. "Ledger entries," Slack continued. "Diamond dealings, suspicious payments." Marple tapped her pen. "Motive is not method." Slack frowned. "He had opportunity." "Not this one," Marple replied. Slack waited. "The method," she said, "required access to the music room panel and the weapon." "The banker could hire someone," Slack argued. "Possible," Marple said, "but timing matters." She read through her notes. 8:55, she said. "The banker was in the ballroom, confirmed by multiple people." Slack checked his list. "True." Marple drew a small diagram. 2 circles, one for the music room, one for the ballroom. "They do not overlap," she said. Slack leaned back. "So the banker's motive doesn't clear him." "No," Marple said, "but the method does." She looked at the residue samples. "Diamond dust, lead flecks, fired at close range." Slack nodded. "From the panel gun." "And the cue," Marple said. "The untouched flute." Slack's brow furrowed. "Signal?" "Yes." The flute was handled in the pantry, left dull, with metallic residue. It told. The shooter, Sir Julian, was in position. Slack considered this. So the banker couldn't have signaled or fired. "No," Marple said, "but someone could." She looked at the list of who was near the music room before the toast. Ridge's name was there, twice. Ridge had access to the panel, she said. He knew the timings. He gave the mask to Miss Black to hide the scent of powder. Slack's pen stopped moving. Why frame the banker? Marple closed her notebook. The ledger. The banker's dealings were a perfect distraction. All Ridge needed was to point suspicion that way. Slack stared at her. You're certain? Marple stood. Quite, she said quietly. Ridge, not banker. The gun was here, fired from here. Miss Marple stood by the open wall panel. Slack was beside her. Ridge faced them. She pointed inside. The gun was here, fired from here. Slack added, straight through the slit, direct to where Sir Julian stood. Ridge's eyes narrowed. I don't know anything about that. Marple held up the mask. Given to Miss Black, scent of roses, to hide the smell of powder. Ridge shook his head. It was just for show. Slack took the untouched flute from the evidence bag. Metallic residue. This was the signal. Ridge looked away. Coincidence? Marple spoke firmly. You touched it in the pantry. You knew the champagne was ready. That told you. Sir Julian was in place. Slack stepped closer. Then you fired. Powder and diamond dust hit him. The mark on his waistcoat proves it. Ridge's jaw tightened. You can't prove it was me. Marple opened the ledger. Your initials, authorizing large withdrawals, no matching invoices. Ridge's voice rose. Estate expenses. Slack cut him off. Money gone, diamonds bought, bribes paid, and Sir Julian found out. Marple's tone was steady. You couldn't risk exposure. You planned this to look like a theft gone wrong. Ridge's hands curled into fists. You're guessing. No, Marple said. I'm observing. Stain on your fingers matches the fresh panel work. The rose scent is still on your skin. Slack's voice hardened. It's over, Ridge. Ridge looked between them. His breathing quickened. Marple held his gaze. You made one mistake. You gave yourself the perfect timing. Ridge's pulse jumped. He turned and bolted for the back door. Garden isn't dark. His heart is. Ridge burst through the back door. Slack shouted, Lake, with me! They ran into the garden. Left, Slack ordered. Ridge sprinted toward the hedge. Gate, Lake called out. They cut across the grass. Now, Slack shouted. Ridge reached the side path. Lake was already there. Ridge turned the other way. Slack moved in from behind. Stop, he yelled. Ridge didn't. Lake lunged, grabbed his arm. Ridge swung back, trying to break free. Slack caught his other arm. They forced him against the wall. Something fell from his pocket, a small cloth pouch. Lake picked it up, opened it. Inside, fine grit, diamond dust, mixed with dull gray flecks. Slack held it up. From the gun, Ridge twisted in their grip. You have nothing. Slack read him his rights. You're under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in court. Lake tightened his hold. It's over. Ridge stopped struggling. His breathing was heavy. They pulled him toward the house. Guests in the ballroom turned to look. Lady Bantry stepped forward. Slack led Ridge past her. Lady Bantry asked, Are the funds safe? Charity saved face. Greed took a life. Miss Marple sat with Lady Bantry in the small morning room. The house was quieter now. Ridge was in custody. The police had collected the ledger, the gun, and the pouch. She spoke gently. It was the panel gun, powder and fragments, fired at close range. Lady Bantry nodded slowly. The flute was the signal, Marple continued. Handled in the pantry, left dull with residue. And the mask? Lady Bantry asked. A cover for the smell of powder, Marple said, given to Miss Black to keep suspicion away. Lady Bantry sighed. He planned it all. Yes, he needed to hide the missing funds. Sir Julian found out her Ridge couldn't risk exposure. Lady Bantry looked down at her hands. And the tiara? Taken to make it look like theft, one diamond damaged by heat, fired as part of the shot. Lady Bantry was silent for a moment. Marple's tone softened. You could not have stopped it. His plan was already in motion. A maid entered with tea, set the tray down, left again. Lady Bantry poured. The papers will say the charity ball was a success. Yes, Marple said. The donations will rise. Your reputation will be secure. But not for the right reason, Lady Bantry said quietly. Marple gave a small nod. People will see the glamour, Marple said, not the greed that caused it. Lady Bantry looked at her. Is that always the way? Often, Marple replied. Good needs a show. Evil needs cover. They drank in silence for a moment. Outside, the sound of a carriage faded away. Miss Marple stood. I should go. You have guests to reassure. Lady Bantry rose too. Thank you, Jane. Marple smiled faintly. We meet to help. Sometimes. The truth gets lost in the crowd. Her words stayed with Lady Bantry, long after she had gone, and the house, though safe again, felt a little emptier.